All Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. And that's all they need to do. And if they don't, it is unfair on the children. It's also unfair on the royal family.
People think her kids are fake. They think they're AI.
The whole description she does of the Portland hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated. We all know.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle once believed they could keep their children completely out of the spotlight. But that plan is cracking wide open in a shocking way. What used to be tightly guarded is now pulling massive attention, especially with bold claims from Tom Bower throwing Archie and Lilibet right into the center of the storm.
This scandal comes as no surprise. Speculation about the children has been simmering for years.
If she hasn't had the children herself, or Harry hadn't been involved, then they can't be in the royal line. They have to have royal blood, those little ones. Without that, there's no chance of them becoming a member of the royal family.
This case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bum. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince Archie.
So she wasn't even pregnant. So it's very weird. And Harry it was said to Harry, not to her. I mean, she just came.
Suddenly, people aren't just watching. They're questioning everything. And the whispers about family history and identity are spreading fast, turning quiet curiosity into loud, non-stop demands for answers. The palace has stayed silent, but outside those walls, the noise is getting louder by the second. Calls for clarity and proof are becoming harder to ignore, and the pressure keeps building. Tension is rising, and this situation is moving in a direction that could seriously reshape how people see the royal family.
I discovered was, of course, that she was hunting for a man in England from 2013 onwards, when her marriage had crashed and she couldn't find anyone in Canada at the time. And she wanted wealth and she wanted fame. And she targeted, there's no doubt she targeted.
What once felt controlled now feels unpredictable, and it's catching attention everywhere. Everything flipped fast for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and it's not slowing down. What used to be private family life is now one of the most talked about topics online. A fresh wave of claims has pushed Archie and Lilibet into the spotlight, and reactions are coming from every direction. This isn't the usual royal headline anymore. The focus has completely shifted, and people can't stop watching how it unfolds. Across social media and public discussions, people are revisiting past moments, pointing out details they believe don't line up.
Tom, do you think Harry and Meghan are fast learning what they signed away when they took this Netflix big moolah? And I would say they signed away their credibility and their dignity.
Well, that's our view, but it's not theirs. They need the money, and they need it now more than ever because they've got no other source of income. So I think they're just stuck with the devil now. They're tied to Netflix, they're tied to their book, and all the criticism they're going to take means nothing because that's the only way they can earn their money.
They're connecting dots, raising questions, and digging into things that have been sitting in the background for years. What was once easy to overlook is now impossible to ignore, and the momentum behind it is growing fast. You can feel this building into something even bigger the deeper it goes. For a couple that clearly wanted to protect their kids from attention, this shift is massive. The situation has taken on a life of its own, with more voices jumping in and pushing the conversation further into the spotlight. And the more it spreads, the harder it becomes to contain, which makes what happens next even more important to watch closely. Now, one question keeps popping up everywhere, and it's not fading anytime soon. People are asking, who are Archie and Lilibet really? It's the kind of question that would normally feel too personal to even say out loud.
I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point. And the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. You know, I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done. So, you know, I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK, of course.
But with so much public curiosity, it's being repeated louder and more often. That alone shows how intense this situation has become. Tom Bower's claims are also bringing attention to how certain personal choices may have been handled privately. Some believe there could be more to the story than what's been publicly shared, especially when it comes to family lineage, something that carries serious weight in royal discussions. That's exactly why this is pulling so much focus right now, and why people aren't looking away. At the same time, Prince Harry is facing serious pressure like never before. His public image is shifting under constant scrutiny, with opinions forming nonstop. Reports describe a tense environment, with Harry appearing restless, reacting strongly in certain moments, and staying locked in on everything being said about him.
Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
They need to prove that those children, Meghan and Harry, are not entitled to privacy in this matter. And their privacy is trumped by our right to know that no bastard is going to sit on the throne of this country.
Like, why lie? It was just so truly bizarre.
Meghan is using everything for publicity and not really truly there. We know how she treats her family.
The change is noticeable and people are paying attention to every detail. What's really catching people off guard is how different everything looks now. Prince Harry, who once spoke openly about mental health, is now being described as overwhelmed by the pressure. The steady image people were used to is starting to look shaken, and that shift is hard to ignore as the spotlight gets even brighter. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle is handling things in a completely different way, and that contrast is drawing even more attention. Reports describe her approach as controlled and strategic, focused on legal responses and keeping everything tightly managed. No public reactions, no emotional statements, just a firm, quiet effort to shut things down before they spread further. But here's where it takes another turn. The more this situation gets pushed down, the stronger it seems to come back up.
It was a dreadful thing to do and actually completely wrong. He is quite hard and harsh.
Then he wore a Nazi uniform at a party. Then he was wearing absolutely nothing in the nude at the party in Las Vegas. And he couldn't cope with the criticism because in his view, he is a target. And it didn't help. His telephones were hacked by News International, Rupert Murdoch's group here in.
Instead of fading, it keeps growing, pulling in more voices and sharper questions. People are going back, re-examining past moments with a fresh perspective, from carefully staged photos to timelines that some believe don't fully match up. And what they're finding is only making the conversation louder. Things just got even more intense. Every detail is now under a microscope. Make sure you're subscribed because the next part takes this even deeper. Everything is being picked apart right now, and the way their family story was presented is facing serious questions. Some people are saying it all felt a little too perfect, a little too controlled, and when something looks overly polished, that's when curiosity really starts to grow.
Conversation, I'm told and I believe, was very early on in their relationship when Harry is bowled over by Meghan, is desperately in love, and already is talking about marriage, but long before their engagement is even announced, let alone they're married and she's pregnant. And he's sitting in Clarence's house with then Prince Charles and Camilla. And Camilla just laughingly says, well, any child you'll have will probably have brown skin and ginger hair.
What about the security arrangements that were in place made you feel it would be unsafe for you and your family?
There's only so much that I can say because of the redaction process and the national security matters at hand, but everything. Because in beginning of 2020, I was scored the highest as far as risk was concerned. And then overnight, I was reduced to the lowest without actually going through the risk management.
Critics argue that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had time to clear up confusion but chose to stay private instead, and now that same privacy is being looked at in a completely different way. What once seemed like a solid narrative is now being challenged from multiple angles. All eyes are locked on them as this situation keeps unfolding, and whether people agree with Tom Bower or not, one thing is clear. The silence from Harry and Meghan isn't slowing anything down. If anything, it's making the noise even louder, and the attention isn't fading anytime soon. Another detail people can't stop talking about is the distance between Archie and Lilibet and the rest of the royal family, and it's raising serious questions. When you look at Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, their children are often seen sharing moments with King Charles III, Queen Camilla, and even Queen Elizabeth II in the past. There are photos, public appearances, and interactions that feel natural and consistent.
That's why I think, I think Tina is a great journalist, and perhaps she has inside information. I don't see how the Sussexes can give up both the Netflix and the book deal. They won't be living in a Montecito cottage. They're more likely living somewhere in downtown LA, in a little hovel. That's their problem. They're stuck now. But, the truth is about
extraordinary reporting in your book on what this was likely based on and how it doesn't match up to what Meghan said. Here's the clip, Sot 6 from the Oprah interview.
But when it comes to Harry and Meghan's children, that same visibility just isn't there. There are no widely shared moments with senior royals, no clear public family bonding that many expected given their place in the monarchy. That absence is standing out more than ever, and people are starting to ask what's really behind it. Some believe it's simply personal choice, while others think it may have been intentional from the beginning. But either way, the lack of visible connection is now a major talking point. And this is where things get even more serious. People are debating different possibilities, including private family decisions that are usually kept out of public view.
Well, look, Radar Online, in fairness, they do quote you and say Royal Author Lady Colin Campbell recently challenged the conspiracy of silence and misinformation surrounding both topics.
In most situations, those choices are completely normal. But in a royal family where lineage plays a key role, the conversation carries a whole different weight. If any important details about family background were ever unclear or misunderstood, it could raise bigger questions tied to tradition and structure. The monarchy has always depended on a sense of continuity, and anything that seems to challenge that can quickly turn into a major topic.
You hoped your children, Archie and Lilibet, would have had that you think they won't be able to now with this decision?
Well, for a start, the only time that I've come back to the UK is sadly for funerals or court cases.
The Queen and the Duke. Yes, and we just bumped into the Duke as we were walking by, which was so nice. So it'll be a nice moment to introduce the baby to more family, and my mom's with us as well. So it's been a really, here we go.
Another great grand.
He's not very intelligent and undoubtedly remains damaged by the early death of his mother, Diana. And he very foolishly blames the media for her, in his words, which is complete nonsense. But I think he loved the adulation. He loved it when he was being praised, especially when he was a soldier. But then he became criticized, firstly because he became drunk in public.
That's exactly why this situation is gaining so much attention. It's not just about one family, it connects to how people see the stability of the entire institution. Even small uncertainties can grow into something much bigger when they involve something this historic. And then there's Tom Bower, the name right at the center of these claims. He's known for detailed and sometimes controversial takes on royal matters, and that reputation is why people pay attention when he speaks. His comments tend to spark strong reactions, and this time is no exception. The conversation is louder, more intense, and far from over. Many are describing this as a spark that could grow into something much bigger, and the attention keeps building. If these claims continue to spread, the impact on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's public image could be serious, with more people questioning everything they thought they knew.
That she never intended to go to the Portland hospital. She intended to have the baby at home. We know that they deceived the public about the birth date and time of the whole event. So, and also, even it goes down to the lawyer saying that in that statement, when they have that long attack on the Mail, which is astonishing, that Meghan, we know she lied in her statement.
But what's really pushing this to another level is one key detail: the silence through all the noise. Harry and Meghan haven't stepped forward with a clear public response. No detailed statement, no direct clarification, no visible move to settle things once and for all. That quiet approach is standing out more and more, and it's becoming part of the story itself. Instead of calming things down, that silence is doing the opposite. It's pushing more people to ask questions, to speculate, and to keep the discussion alive. The longer it goes on, the more attention it pulls in, and the harder it becomes to slow everything down. Now the pressure is building in a very public way. Calls for answers are spreading across platforms, with debates happening everywhere from social media to major talk shows. Every detail is being analyzed: photos, timelines, past interviews, all of it is being picked apart as people try to figure out what's really going on. And what comes next is only making this even harder to ignore. You can see it everywhere now, the same question repeating over and over.
That has always been her motive. She's money obsessed and always has been. And that is why she married Prince Harry. A great surprise and disappointment was to discover that Prince Harry had very little money. She imagined he'd be worth hundreds of millions, if not billions. And she's having to make up for it now.
If everything is accurate, why not address it directly and clear the air? That curiosity is exactly what's keeping this topic trending, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. Every day without a response adds another layer, making the situation more intense and harder to manage in the public eye. What started as a small wave of discussion has now turned into a full-scale media storm that just keeps growing. From a public image standpoint, this is a critical moment. The Sussex brand has always been built around a carefully shaped story, focused on family, stability, and a fresh start away from royal life. That image was crafted through interviews, documentaries, and controlled appearances, but now it's being examined closer than ever.
How does your mom feel about your relationship with your brother now?
I think she would be sad. I think she'd be looking at it long term to know that there are certain things that we need to go through to be able to heal the relationship. I have felt the presence of my mum more so in the last 2 years than I have in the last.
That's our view, but it's not theirs. They need the money, and they need it now more than ever because they've got no other source of income. So I think they're just stuck with the devil now. They're tied to Netflix, they're tied to their book, and all the criticism they're going to take means nothing because that's the only way they can earn them.
With all eyes watching and questions stacking up, that once polished image is starting to show real cracks, and they're not small ones. This shift feels deeper, more intense, and much harder to contain than anything before. No carefully staged photo or perfectly worded interview seems strong enough to quiet the growing noise surrounding it, and people are noticing the change more and more. For Prince Harry, this situation hits on a completely different level. This isn't just another headline, it feels personal. It cuts straight into the story he's built over the years. Fatherhood has always been a major part of that story, something he's spoken about repeatedly as a turning point in his life. He's shared how becoming a father gave him purpose, direction, and stability, shaping how people understood his decisions after stepping away from royal duties. Now critics are focusing directly on that part of his life, raising questions that challenge the foundation of that narrative. And those kinds of questions don't just impact public image, they touch something far more personal. That's why the reaction feels so intense right now. It's no longer just curiosity. It's about identity, reputation, and how his story is being viewed in real time. The conversation has clearly shifted into something more serious, and the level of scrutiny keeps rising. People are now looking at Prince Harry from completely different angles, and the contrast is hard to ignore. Some describe him as out of the loop, while others believe he's fully aware of everything happening. But neither view paints a steady picture, and both are being pushed across media platforms. What makes this even more complicated is how little control there seems to be over the narrative. The more the conversation spreads, the harder it becomes to manage how his story is told. Right now, it's not just about what's true or not, it's about perception, and that's what's driving the momentum. And right in the middle of it all, one theme keeps coming. Back, control, or the lack of it. Because at this point, the biggest question isn't just about the claims themselves, it's about who gets to define the story moving forward, and whether Prince Harry can take that control back before it slips even further. Reports from Montecito are adding another layer to this already intense situation. Insiders are describing an atmosphere that feels heavy, tense, and hard to ignore. Behind closed doors, the pressure is said to be building, with Prince Harry reportedly deeply focused on everything being said. Constantly checking headlines, reading articles, and watching videos where people analyze every detail of his family story. This isn't being described as casual attention. It's nonstop. Every photo, every timeline, every claim is being examined publicly, and he's reportedly taking it all in. People close to him say the stress is starting to show, with restless energy, quick reactions, and long nights that don't seem to bring much rest. The weight of it all is becoming more visible, and observers say it's getting harder to miss. What really stands out is the contrast between past and present. Prince Harry once positioned himself as a strong voice for mental health, encouraging openness and balance. Now critics are pointing out how different things look, saying he appears caught in the same kind of pressure he once spoke about overcoming. And that contrast is only adding more attention as this story keeps unfolding. This just took another sharp turn, and people are watching every move closely. Stay with this, because the next part pushes things even further. At the same time, Meghan Markle is said to be handling this in a completely different way. And that contrast is pulling just as much attention. Reports describe a focused, strategic response with legal teams involved, formal notices being prepared, and a clear effort to control how the story spreads. But here's where things flip. Every attempt to contain the situation is being watched closely, and instead of slowing it down, it's actually making people more curious. Now people are questioning every move, asking why such strong steps are being taken and what it could really mean. And then there's the royal family. Their silence is standing out just as much as everything else. No public comments, no visible family moments, none of the usual gestures people have come to expect over the years. Even routine acknowledgments that would normally happen haven't been seen, and that absence is impossible to ignore. When compared to Prince William and Catherine's children, who are often seen in public family settings, the difference feels sharp. That contrast is fueling even more discussion, with people wondering what could be happening behind the scenes. And now that question is getting louder. Does the royal family know more than they're saying, or is this distance simply a personal choice being misunderstood? Either way, the silence from all sides is adding to the intensity, and the conversation isn't slowing down at all. There's also a new angle gaining traction, and it's changing how people view everything. Instead of seeing the distance as rejection, some now believe it could actually be intentional protection. The idea is that keeping Archie and Lilibet away from the center of royal life might have been a careful move to avoid future issues, especially if there were quiet concerns building behind the scenes. Now, with these claims getting more attention, that theory is spreading fast. Some are even suggesting the palace may be choosing to stay silent on purpose, watching how everything unfolds instead of stepping in too early. It creates the feeling of a waiting game, where all eyes are on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to respond. Or not. And if that interpretation carries any weight, this situation becomes something much bigger. It stops looking like simple speculation and starts being seen as a serious institutional issue. Because if there were ever concerns at a higher level, the implications would go far beyond just one family. And that's exactly why people are paying such close attention. At this point, the tone of the conversation has clearly shifted. What started as curiosity has turned into ongoing suspicion, and it's no longer limited to smaller circles. Larger platforms, public discussions, and well-known voices are now engaging with the same questions, pushing this topic further into the spotlight. One question keeps coming back again and again. Will Prince Harry and Meghan Markle directly address these claims in a clear way? It might sound extreme, but as long as answers feel out of reach, the curiosity keeps growing stronger. What's making this even more intense is the idea that there were earlier chances to clear things up. Some critics believe explanations could have been given, details clarified, and confusion reduced before things reached this level. Instead, the response has remained limited, and now that approach is being interpreted in completely different ways depending on who you ask. In today's environment, where every detail gets analyzed, silence doesn't just disappear. It becomes part of the story. And right now, that silence is being read in the loudest way possible, adding even more pressure to a situation that already feels close to a breaking point. What's really hitting people now is the sense that some of this damage might not be easy to reverse. Prince Harry, once seen as bold and independent, is now being viewed in a very different light, and that shift is hard to ignore. Even some who were once close to him are said to be keeping their distance. And that only adds to the feeling that something big has changed, with more still unfolding ahead. According to reports, Prince Harry's behavior has become harder for those around him to read. There are moments of visible frustration, followed by long periods of quiet withdrawal, and those changes aren't going unnoticed. People are starting to talk more openly about it, with some suggesting he may be struggling to hold on to a clear sense of direction under all this pressure. What makes this even more intense is how deeply it connects to fatherhood. That's something he has always described as central to his life, shaping how people understand his decisions and his personal journey. Now, with that part of his story being questioned, it's creating a much deeper impact than a typical public controversy ever would. At the same time, Meghan Markle is being described as steady and controlled in how she's responding, and that contrast is standing out. Reports suggest she's continuing to rely on structured legal steps, working carefully to manage how the situation is handled publicly and limit how far certain claims can spread. But even that approach is drawing attention instead of calming things down. In fact, it's doing the opposite. Every move is being watched closely, with people forming their own interpretations and asking more questions. In situations like this, attempts to contain a story can sometimes keep it in the spotlight even longer, and that's exactly what seems to be happening here. Public reaction is also being shaped by everything that came before. From highly produced interviews to carefully presented media projects, there was always a strong focus on themes like honesty, growth, and transparency. Now, with questions circulating and few direct responses, that contrast is becoming impossible to ignore. Some people are interpreting that gap as a disconnect between image and reality. Whether that view is fair or not, It's clearly influencing how this situation is being discussed right now, and it's adding even more intensity to an already heated conversation. And through all of this, one detail keeps standing out: the silence from the royal family. No public support, no visible involvement, and no clear signals about where things stand. That absence is being noticed just as much as everything else, leaving Prince Harry and Meghan Markle facing the full weight of this situation on their own. Behind palace doors, the situation is being described as extremely delicate. Reports suggest careful decisions are being made about every move, with King Charles III advised to keep distance. The concern is that even a small gesture could lead to bigger complications if things shift unexpectedly, and that silence is being interpreted in ways that only add more pressure. At the same time, there's growing talk about internal discussions happening quietly in the background. These conversations are said to focus on future planning, legal considerations, and how to respond if questions continue to escalate. This isn't casual talk. It reflects just how seriously this situation is being viewed behind the scenes. One of the biggest points being raised centers around royal structure and long-standing traditions. Questions are now being asked about how certain scenarios could impact titles, roles, and positions within the royal framework. Even without confirmation, the fact that these discussions are happening is enough to keep speculation moving fast. Could changes ever be made? That's the question people keep coming back to. Right now, there are no clear answers, and that lack of communication is leaving space for ongoing debate. That uncertainty is exactly what's fueling even more attention and keeping this story alive. What's becoming clear is that public perception of the Sussex story is shifting quickly. The narrative that once focused on independence and a fresh start is now being re-examined under a much more critical lens. Every unanswered question adds more weight, and the pressure keeps building with each passing day. Now everything seems to be narrowing down to one key decision: a direct response. Could bring clarity and possibly calm the situation, while continued silence may keep the conversation going without resolution. That contrast is what makes this moment feel so important, especially in a story tied to legacy and public trust. Because unanswered questions don't just disappear, they stay, shaping opinions and influencing how everything is remembered over time. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle built their path around openness and a new beginning. But now that path is being tested under intense global attention. This story is still unfolding, and right now it feels like there are more questions than answers. The silence, the claims, the reactions, it's all building into something people can't look away from. Whether you believe the reports or think it's being exaggerated, one thing is clear: this situation isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Now I want to hear what you think. Do you believe Prince Harry and Meghan Markle should come forward and address everything directly? Would a clear answer settle things or only create more questions? And what do you make of the royal family staying completely silent through all of this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this interesting, make sure to like, subscribe for more deep dives like this, and share it with someone following the story. Because as this keeps unfolding, you won't want to miss what comes next.